Warning, this video contains subject matter that may be disturbing to some viewers. So let's get the housekeeping out of the way. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. All of the information gathered is from news sources or an internet search, and any opinions expressed by me is just that, my opinion. With that being said, let's jump into it. Thank you for watching True Crime AB. Today, I just wanted to go over the Idaho 4 murder cases. Just do an overview of the case, what we know up until today, which is January the 8th, 2023. There may be some people out there who have never heard of this case, which is kind of unbelievable, but maybe. And some of you guys may just need a refresher. So here's what we know so far. In the early morning hours of November the 13th, 4 Idaho State University students were brutally murdered inside their off-campus rental home. The victims were Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Kaylee Goncalves, and Madison Mogen. Ethan Chapin was the only victim who didn't live in that home. He was there visiting his girlfriend, one of the other victims, Xana Kernodle. Ethan Chapin was 20 years old. He was a triplet. He was a freshman majoring in sports management, and he was a member of the Sigma Chi fraternity. Ethan's girlfriend, Xana Kernodle, did live in the home on the second floor. She was a junior. She was also 20 years old. She was majoring in marketing, and she was a member of the Phi Beta Phi sorority. Kaylee Goncalves was 21 years old. She was a senior majoring in general studies, and she was a member of the Alpha Phi sorority. She also lived in the home up on the 3rd floor. Kaylee's best friend since 6th grade and roommate Madison Mogen also lived in the home on the 3rd floor. She was 21 years old. She was a senior. She studied marketing and was a member of Phi Beta Phi sorority with Xana. And her and Xana both had jobs at the Mad Greek restaurant, which was located downtown Mascow. There were 2 other female roommates that were in the house at the time of the murders, but were unharmed. We will refer to them as roommate number 1 and roommate number 2. Roommate number 1 lived on the 1st floor. It's where her room was. And roommate number 2 lived on the 2nd floor, the same floor that Xana's room was on. We don't really know where roommate number 1 and roommate number 2 were on the previous evening leading up to the murders. I believe that they had returned home that evening at about 1 o'clock in the morning. I believe they were the first ones to arrive home that night before the victims. So we do have a pretty good timeline of the events that occurred that night, specifically from the affidavit that the police released within the last couple of days. You can find that on other channels. We're not going to go over the whole thing. It's just way too long. What we know about Xana and Ethan's evening isn't a whole lot. We do know that they spent several hours at a fraternity party. It was Ethan's fraternity that had a party, and they returned back to the home at about 1:45 a.m. Now, we know quite a bit about the whereabouts of Madison and Kaylee. There was a lot of video footage that just happened to be taken of them that night while they were out. We know that they spent some time inside a bar there in Mascow. The Corner Club, I think, was the name of it. Somewhere around 1:30 a.m., they were then seen at a local food truck called the Grub Hub, where they were captured on video ordering macaroni. After getting their food, they then got a paid ride home, returning to their house at about 1:45 a.m. Of course, we don't know everything that went on in that house after all the roommates got home, but we do know a few things. So we know that Kaylee tried to call her ex-boyfriend about 6 or 7 times, and then once from Madison's phone. And we also know that at about 4 o'clock in the morning, Xana got a DoorDash order delivered to her at the house. So around 4 o'clock in the morning, one of the surviving roommates, roommate number 2, said she woke up and thought she had heard Kaylee playing with her dog. She also said she heard someone she thought was Kaylee say, "There's someone here." But it could have been Xana, who they know was on her phone on TikTok up until about 4:12 a.m. She said she looked out of her bedroom when she thought she heard that, but didn't see anything. So she opened her door a second time, and she said she thought she heard crying coming from Xana's room. And then she heard a male voice say something like, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." She then saw a man in black clothes and a mask walking past her room. Now, apparently she just stood there kind of frozen or in shock. She said she didn't recognize the man and that he walked towards the sliding glass doors, which were on the second floor. She described him as being about 6 foot tall, athletically built, but thin. And she said that he had bushy eyebrows. Now, at that time, the roommate did not call 911. We're not sure why, but she didn't. It could be that she just didn't really realize what she was seeing. So that morning, November the 13th, well, right before noon, at 11:58 a.m., somebody called 911 from one of the roommates' phone and reported an unconscious person. When law enforcement arrived to the home, that's when they made the grisly discoveries. Madison, Kaylee, Ethan, and Xana were all found deceased. Autopsies would later determine that all the victims were stabbed multiple times. Madison and Kaylee were found on the 3rd floor in Madison's bedroom. They were in the bed together. Ethan and Xana were found on the 2nd floor in Xana's bedroom, and I believe Xana was found on the floor. The police didn't release a whole lot of information in the early days of the case, but on Wednesday, December 7th, police announced that they were wanting to speak with the driver or the persons who were in a white 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra that was seen in the immediate area of the home in the early morning hours of November the 13th. There really wasn't much information given after that. There was a lot of speculation and a lot of rumors. There were a lot of other channels who did like really deep dives into the videos of the girls at the Grub Hub. There were interviews with neighbors, there was speculation, but nobody really knew what law enforcement knew. They had given a few press releases, but they didn't really say much or give much information, so it wasn't believed that they had a suspect. So I think everybody was surprised when on Friday, December the 30th, they announced that they had made an arrest and had arrested Bryan Kohberger in Pennsylvania in the Pocono Mountains for the Idaho 4 murders. He was arrested on 4 counts of first-degree murder and burglary. He had his first court appearance on the 3rd, where he agreed to be extradited back to Idaho. So on January 4th, he was extradited from Pennsylvania back to Idaho and had his first court appearance on Thursday, January 5th in Mascow.
The maximum penalty for that offense, if you plead guilty or are found guilty, is death and or imprisonment for life. Do you understand?
Yes.
Count 4.
What we know about Bryan Kohberger is he's a 28-year-old criminology PhD student at Washington State University. That's located in Pullman, Washington, and it's only about a 10-minute drive from Mascow, Idaho. Police have said that they had video footage of a white Elantra that they traced back to Bryan Kohberger in the general area of the home during the time of the murders. They also had tracked his phone pings, I guess, which were also in the area at the time of the murders. On December 15th, Kohberger was stopped by Indiana police twice right in a row, like 7 minutes apart, for traffic violations. He was on his way back to Pennsylvania, where his main home is and where his parents live. He also had his father with him in the car, who it was said had flown down to make the long road trip with him. From what I understand, law enforcement knew who their suspect was early on, and they were able to kind of follow him around, gather information, especially once he was back in Pennsylvania. And law enforcement was able to collect DNA from the trash, the Kohberger's trash, and they were able to link it to DNA that they found at the crime scene. Now, police have said that they found DNA on a knife sheath that was actually found laying next to Madison Mogen's body. So currently, Bryan Kohberger has been arrested. He is the accused murderer of Ethan, Xana, Madison, and Kaylee. And he is currently in the Mascow County Jail, I believe. I'm not sure that that's where he's going to stay, but I think that's where he's at. And his next hearing is going to be on January the 12th. I don't think from this point forward we're going to be getting much more information than what we already have. If you want to look at deep dives of this case, there are a lot of channels that are doing those, and there's some really, really interesting stuff out there that they have discovered. So it'd be worth your while, I think, to go and check some of those out. And now you have the basic information and you can do that. As always, thank you for joining us. And don't forget to hit those like, subscribe, and notification buttons so that you don't miss any future episodes.